An indictment charging Lev
at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Thursday, October 10th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, your needy MBFF. I'm there on Twitter at Dean Obeidallah, Facebook.com/Dean of Radio, Dean at DeanofRadio.com. Hope you're having a good day. Big show. Bernie Sanders is joining us. I think it's his first radio interview. I'm saying that sincerely, since he's sort of back campaigning. And we just taped it minutes ago, literally right before the show. Play it in the next hour. Chatted with Bernie about a bunch of issues. Talked about his health. Talked about health care in this country and the need for it, plus the corruption. He was very point blank that the corrupt media will not allow certain topics to be discussed at next week's debate, or any debate for that matter, but next week specifically we talked about. So we'll talk about that. But today, of course, is the criminality of Donald Trump. The circle just continues. Let me ask you this. Is anybody connected to Trump who's not a criminal? Is there somebody who's at least not corrupt, even though they're not indicted, but at least, I mean, like Ivanka and Jared, they're corrupt. They've not been indicted yet. Maybe one day. It seems everyone in this family, Don Jr., certainly corrupt. And now today, two people who are buddies of Rudy Giuliani were indicted. And let's be clear, the top line here, these two guys are all tied to Donald Trump. They were doing Trump's work. I don't know if he directed them to do this. It's unlikely he directed them to commit this campaign finance violation. He did direct Michael Cohen to break the law. We know that. Michael Cohen's in prison right now because of Trump, at least in part because of Trump, part of his own wrongdoing, of course. But what we do know is, here's another prediction. Tomorrow, Donald Trump is meeting with the vice premier of China. I'm going to predict he's going to reach a deal on the tariffs. It won't be a good deal. It might be a nothing deal, but he'll declare victory because things are going so badly for him right now that tomorrow, if we come on tomorrow, we go, oh, look, Trump, he made a deal with China. It's because he gave in. He capitulated because he needs something because the media coverage is so bad, from crimes to the Kurds, abandoning the Kurds, our allies, and just our government's for sale under Trump. So what happened today? Two people, Giuliani's buddies, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, were charged. They were arrested and charged with trying to funnel foreign money to U.S. politicians in a bid to affect U.S.-Ukraine relations and also launch a marijuana business, which is second. We'll talk about that because that's just kind of funnier. That's just like old school bribery stuff. The other stuff is much more tied to Trump. But as we've all learned, if you didn't know this, foreigners cannot give money to, foreign nationals cannot give money to a U.S. campaign. Now, in this case, these two men, while Soviet-born, were U.S. citizens. They could give legally money to a campaign. But they created a shell company, and that's what's really going on here. They were funneling money. They were using straw people, as it's called, or straw men. It's a legal term. I'm just updating the straw people. But Parnas and Fruman gave $325,000 to America First Action, a super PAC formed to help Republicans in the 2018 midterm with the backing of Donald Trump, and also giving more money, thousands, to another Trump-related super PAC. And I'll go through some of the details, but this much money got the attention of the whole Trump world because they were invited to Mar-a-Lago. They were invited to the White House, these two guys. And there's a picture on Twitter you can look at, and I've been retweeting it a lot because I enjoy it. There's Donald Trump Jr. having dinner or lunch. I can't tell, lunch or dinner with the two guys. So that's not like a fundraising event. He's there. It's at a restaurant. The two guys, one other guy, and Don Jr. So Don Jr., he's there for you. Trump Tower getting dirt from Russians to hurt Hillary, he's there. And meeting former Soviets to get dirt on Joe Biden, Donald Trump Jr. is there. Donald Trump Jr. is always where people up to no good are hanging out. Donald Trump Jr., if he's not indicted when this is over, our criminal justice system has failed us. That's a different story. So why these two men? How are they tied to Donald Trump? Because they were helping Rudy Giuliani investigate Joe Biden and the alleged dirt in the Ukraine. And these guys had a history of shady financial dealings, and suddenly they became active in politics in 2018. There's a lot of unanswered questions. The indictment was a typical indictment, not a Robert Mueller indictment. It gave you the bare bones, the sort of the skeleton of the allegations. Robert Mueller's indictments were remarkably detailed. What we do know is, interestingly enough, that there were articles about these two guys over the last few months that they were bragging about being friends with Rudy Giuliani. They were bragging about trying to help get dirt on Joe Biden. These were not like quiet guys. They seemed to want to be celebrities. But that all ended today when they were charged, and we found out about it. They were charged last night. We found out about it today. And let's play a little of the U.S. attorney here. And by the way, the person who charged them was the U.S. attorney in New York, an appointee of Donald Trump, Jeffrey Berman, who at first many people thought Berman would be a stooge for Trump, especially because he worked in the same law firm as Rudy Giuliani. But little by little, Berman is getting a good reputation here in New York for being independent of Donald Trump, which is great. So here's first Jeffrey Berman today explaining some of the charges. Clip number 1, please.
Today, we unseal an indictment charging Lev Parnas, Igor Fruman, and 2 co-defendants for their alleged participation in schemes to violate the federal campaign finance laws by repeatedly using straw donors and foreign money. Parnas and Fruman were arrested around 6 p.m. last night at Dulles Airport as they were about to board an international flight with one-way tickets. As alleged in the indictment, the defendants broke the law to gain political influence while avoiding disclosure of who was actually making the donations and where the money was coming from. They sought political influence not only to advance their own financial interests, but to advance the political interests of at least one foreign official, a Ukrainian government official who sought the dismissal of the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine.
And we're going to talk about the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine once we go through some of the allegations, because there's something I'm not grasping, and maybe everyone out there, when we go through it, you can tell me. I have different theories, but I'm not sure. I think we might be facts or I'm missing something, but we'll go through it. Then Berman continued on talking about the
influence are core functions of our campaign finance laws. And as this office has made clear, we will not hesitate to investigate and prosecute those who engage in criminal conduct that draws into question the integrity of our political process. And I want to add that this investigation is continuing.
The investigation is continuing. Dun, 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 dun. What could producers, a shell company, they literally incorporated right before they gave the donations. They have no assets. It's just a paper company. And because in America, corporations can legally give to super PACs, thanks to Citizens United and the Republicans, they were able to funnel $325,000 to this super PAC from this fake corporation. And if all the money, here's one of the worst parts of this, folks. If this money was just by U.S. citizens, that's legal. $325,000 from a company, from corporations to our politicians' super PACs, legal. That's criminal. That's a crime in itself, but it's not. That's legal. But the reason this is illegal is that it was a shell company. They certified that the money was from this corporation. It was not from foreign nationals. That's what they certified. To the FEC, they lied. So they were charged with a bunch of things. Conspiracy, essentially sort of a perjury type of charge in a way, with lying under oath. And the list goes on. They were also charged, and this is kind of interesting, and this might turn out to be something, because all of our antennas go up when we hear this. Separately and unrelated to campaign finance, these two guys were also charged, along with two other people, for trying to illegally violate our campaign finance laws to lobby American politicians in certain states for their marijuana business. They wanted a recreational marijuana business, which they wanted to start. What was interesting, though, it was funded by a Russian businessman. So the minute you hear that, all of us think the same thing, that this is a money laundering operation, isn't it? And that's not the charge yet. And the investigation continues. You heard the U.S. attorney say that. But it certainly smells like a money laundering operation. And perhaps the only reason these two guys were arrested last night, because they were going to leave the country with one-way tickets to some country, which I'm not sure why it's undisclosed where they were going. It'd be interesting to know what country it was. Like if they were going to Aruba, it's one thing. If they were going to one that has no extradition, that's something else. If they were going to Ukraine or Russia, perhaps that would tell us something. Especially if they were going to Russia, I'd like to know where they were going. So how does this tie into Giuliani? Because this is the key. Because we all know this. Rudy Giuliani is not freelancing. He goes on TV and says stupid things and muddies the water by design. Trump wants him doing that. Donald Trump has charged Rudy Giuliani to go out here, go to the Ukraine, find anything you can on Joe Biden. And that's been a long focus thing. So now we learn, and again, this is interesting. If you just Google these guys' names, you'll find articles from a month ago, from 3 months ago, from 5 months ago. They were doing interviews. They were talking about how much they like Giuliani, which now is only going to hurt him. And I'll just share some of that. So apparently, around the latter part of 2018, these guys began working closely with Giuliani, the two defendants, Parnas and Fruman. And they were working closely, and this is all from open source reporting, that they admitted to. They were investigating the Bidens. These two guys were investigating the Bidens. And this is how Giuliani, they get in a circle. Part of it's that's big contribution of money. They buy their way into the Trump world, which if you spend a lot of money with Trump at his hotels or give his super PAC $300,000, you get to have a meeting, get a picture with Trump, and you get to have lunch with the kid, which is the worst part of it all. How close were these two? How close were Giuliani and these two guys? They were pretty close, according to these gentlemen, and what they were saying to the media. And I went back and looked at not articles today, but ones from a few weeks ago and from months ago. They're just openly saying how much they like Giuliani. Quote, Parnas says about Giuliani, quote, we're good friends. We spend time together. We play golf together. Parnas also said Trump is one of the greatest presidents we have, which should be indictable just for saying that. You should get indicted. I'm kidding, Trumpers. Stop it. Parnas also said he helped Giuliani with something, but that story from NPR a little over a month ago, Giuliani wouldn't respond to NPR about what they were helping. Now, we know these guys were giving money to Republicans. They know they were helping Trump. And something else is weird here. And this is the odd part of all of this here. Because on some level, this feels like, and we're not in the beginning of Watergate. We're sort of in the middle, perhaps the end. But it reminds me historically of looking back at the Watergate break-in into the DNC by 5 low-level guys, at least at the time they thought they were, and that they committed some little rogue crime and no way it could be tied to the President Nixon. That's what they thought. When I go through some of these details about what was going on, what these guys were up to, and with Rudy, I have to believe that Trump knew something. He might not know exactly what they're doing because he didn't want to know. He lives in this plausible deniability. Here is the weirdest part of this indictment. It talks about these two guys meeting with a congressman whom we now know as Pete Sessions, a Republican from Texas. He lost re-election. But in 2018, when he was running for re-election, they meet with him. And this is the really weird part. And it deals with someone named Maria Yovanovitch. Maria Yovanovitch is a U.S. ambassador. She's a career diplomat, first served in George W. Bush's administration. I don't know what she is, Republican or Democrat, because then she served under Obama the last 6 months of Obama in the Ukraine again as diplomat. But she's a career diplomat, working first in the Ukraine, ambassador for Bush. Remember her name, Maria Yovanovitch. We're going to go through some things here, which all of a sudden intersect with Donald Trump's phone call with Zelensky on July 25th and intersect with a whistleblower complaint. And this is not in any way a coincidence. There's something bigger going on with her. She's supposed to testify before Congress next week. And just saw breaking news literally to my left on Fox News that Trump is considering blocking her testimony. I can assure you he will block her testimony. He does not want her to speak. I don't know what she knows, but I can tell you it's not going to be helpful to Trump. And she is a career diplomat, worked for Republicans. It's kind of hard to smear her, except they will, because they already tried to. Here's what we found out. These two guys meet with Pete Sessions, the congressman from Texas. We're going to raise money for you, blah, blah, blah. He loves it. I love it because money for politicians is the greatest thing in the world because we live in a corrupt political system. And then, as the complaint notes, this is actually in the indictment, this is not speculation, that these two guys asked Sessions to help them remove Maria Yanovich, the U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine. What a curious thing to ask a U.S. congressman about. Just any country in the world, just randomly picking the Ukraine. The marijuana stuff, I get. You're going to make a profit. You don't talk to a congressman about that. You talk to state officials. But they sit down with Pete Sessions. They do raise money for him. They give him money. And they want him to remove the ambassador. And according to Sessions, apparently, it was at least the request of at least one Ukrainian government official at the time. This is before Zelensky. This is 2018. This is the middle of 2018. This is going on under the president before Zelensky, Poroshenko. And so it's weird. So as BuzzFeed reported months ago, before this criminality, that Sessions said that he went to Pompeo, and they actually have some letters where it said, this is Sessions to Pompeo. This is stunning. He said, I've received notice from close companions that Ambassador Yovanovitch has spoken privately and repeatedly about her disdain for the current administration. And so because of these guys wanted her out. They really wanted her out. This is the middle of last year. And Pete Sessions, doing the job of a guy who gets thousands of dollars, goes, okay, and sends a letter to Pompeo. There's no disputing this. He wanted her out, saying that essentially she was not being loyal to Donald Trump. And Trump did remove her. And just Wall Street Journal 3 days ago, before this broke, reported that Trump ordered the removal of Yovanovitch after months of complaints from allies outside the administration, including Rudy Giuliani, that she was undermining him abroad. And here's the big part, obstructing efforts to investigate Joe Biden. So, and Giuliani backed this all up. Because he'll talk to anyone with a microphone. He talked to Wall Street Journal, I guess it's 3 days ago, before this indictment. This is unbelievable. You can go back and build this story. He told the Wall Street Journal that he reminded the president about the complaints of Yovanovitch, and that he actually said, Giuliani, I'm not kidding, to the Wall Street Journal, in his view, she'd been an obstacle to push to investigate Biden. And so Giuliani wrote a letter in March 28th to Mike Pompeo that included a timeline of Biden's dealings in the Ukraine, alleged Yovanovitch was very close to Biden, which Biden denies because I barely know her. She's worked for us for 6 months, the administration. But think about it. You've got these guys meeting with Sessions last year, and Sessions saying, okay, tells Pompeo, she's not loyal. Get her out. And then Giuliani mimics those exact complaint in a letter in March of this year to Pompeo. She's not loyal. She's bad-mouthing the president. Now, Giuliani adds the next step. She's not playing ball with us. She's not helping us investigate Joe Biden. She's not helping the foreign interference we want in the 2020 election. Clearly, these two guys who went to Sessions, the reason Sessions didn't put that in a letter, or maybe they didn't tell him, I have to believe these two guys have been involved with Giuliani longer than just late last year, at the time of the meeting with Sessions. Because why would these two guys, out of the blue, meet with Sessions and say, let's get rid of this ambassador because she's not loyal to the president? Why would they care that much? What do they have to gain? Now, who is this Ukrainian official might answer that question. But it seems clearly from me, and I'm just saying based on my own common sense, and I could be wrong, and it's opened up to everyone here, what is going on? That they were part of the whole thing. They were helping Giuliani even back then get dirt on Joe Biden. And that raises questions about all this money that's being funneled to the super PAC for the Republicans and Trump. Is it coming from Russians? That's a question. Is it coming from Putin? Is it coming from somebody tied to Trump who are foreign nationals? It's hard. That's where it really gets murky. We don't have all the facts. Something is missing. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and you can see most of the picture, but there's some parts missing, and you got to guess. You're like, well, that could be a windmill or a fighter jet, which is a big difference. But you look at this puzzle, and you're like, there's something missing there. I'm trying to use all my lawyer senses, my common sense, which is the most important, and I appeal to you. And here is to remind everyone, Yovanovitch is important in this story. You got a guys last year meeting with a congressman, going to raise money, and what is their ask? Because when you raise money for some politician, their ask last year is to get rid of her. Then you've got, she's not loyal to Trump. Then you got Giuliani admitting to the Wall Street Journal, yeah, I told the president get rid of her. She's not loyal. She's bad-mouthing you, and she's good friends with Biden. And he told the Wall Street Journal, she's been an obstacle to investigate Biden. And then you go to the phone call, July 25th, the infamous phone call where Donald Trump commits a felony in writing, asks Zelensky for help. In that phone call with Zelensky, he said, quote, the former ambassador for the United States, the woman, which is Yovanovitch, was bad news, and the people she was dealing with in the Ukraine were bad news. So I just want to let you know that. And then the president of the Ukraine, Zelensky, says, with regard to the ambassador, he said, as far as I recall, her name is Yovanovitch. It was great that you were the first one who told me she was a bad ambassador, because I agree with you 100%. Her attitudes towards me was very far from the best, and she admired the previous president, and she was on his side. She would not accept me as the new president well enough. And Trump goes, well, she's going to go through some things. She's going to go through some things? What does that mean? She's already been removed from her job. And then he adds, I will have Giuliani give you a call. I'm going to give Bill Barr call you. We'll get to the bottom of it. I'm sure you will figure it out. What the hell is that about? And then in the whistleblower complaint, here's her name again, Yovanovitch. It says here, Yovanovitch became a central figure. I'll read some of the whistleblower complaint. Right from it, quote, on or about April 29th, I learned from U.S. officials with direct knowledge of the situation that Ambassador Yovanovitch had been suddenly recalled to Washington by senior State Department officials for, quote, consultations, and will most likely be removed from her position. Then he adds later, however, some U.S. officials told me that, in fact, her tour was curtailed because of pressure stemming from Mr. Lysenko's allegations, and that's the ones that Biden was involved in wrongdoing, and adding, quote, Mr. Giuliani subsequently stated in an interview with a Ukrainian journalist published on May 14th that Ambassador Yovanovitch was removed because she was part of the effort against the president. So you think that's why today's indictment, there's something more than two rogue guys raising money from Republicans. Go back to what they did with Jeff Sessions. That's really, with Pete Sessions, sorry. They have a meeting with a congressman. We're going to raise money for you, thousands and thousands of dollars. And our one ask is to remove the U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine. And Jeff Sessions goes, okay, I'll send that letter. Pete Sessions says, okay. And the reason the letter that he sends to Pompeo is that she's essentially not loyal to Trump. And they're building up the case to fire her. And then Rudy Giuliani dispels any kind of speculation why she was let go, because she was not loyal to Trump. And she was an obstacle to the investigation to Joe Biden. All of this is intertwined, folks. If you put the jigsaw puzzle together, I think it's going to reveal Kaiser Sose or Donald Trump, because this is what's going on. This is remarkable. It's remarkable Yovanovitch's name intersects the indictment today, the ask to the congressman of the two guys indicted today who are Giuliani's close friends, shows up in the phone record transcript of July 25th and then in the whistleblower complaint. And you know what? We don't have a dispute of facts here. The facts are Giuliani has educated us. She was fired because she badmouthed Trump, was friends with Biden, and was an obstacle to the investigation. That's why they were not about to flee the jurisdiction. In fact, tonight, Trump's in Minnesota. So Canada, be on guard. You see a big orange-haired creature trying to cross your border. He's fleeing the jurisdiction. That's Trump. Don't give him asylum. He's got to pay the piper here in America. What do you think is going on? Yovanovitch is big, folks. I'm telling you that. That's all I'm sure of that. I'm sure they wanted her out. What was she doing? What were they asking her? And she was not playing ball to have her testify before Congress that Rudy Giuliani said to me, this is speculation, this part, to be fair. If she were to say, Rudy Giuliani said to me, you've got to help us get dirt on Joe Biden. She says it under oath. It's another backup of the story. More and more, you get the sense the apparatus of government is being used by Donald Trump to help breaching public trust, to crime against the people. This is what Trump is doing. So let's take a break, come right back with more of the Dino Bidala Show right after this.